She walked in at 12:47 a.m., not a minute before, not a minute after. I know because I'd been watching the second hand on the wall clock crawl its perfect little circles for the past hour and a half while my steak cooled on the plate in front of me. She didn't sneak in like someone who'd done something regrettable. No. Rachel waltzed in with that little smirk she reserves for when she's just convinced she's the smartest person in the room. Her heels clicked across the tile like a deliberate drum roll, announcing a performance only she believed was worth the price of admission. I didn't stand. I didn't speak. I just sliced into my now room temperature steak, the knife gliding through with a mechanical smoothness I found oddly comforting. She tossed her purse on the hallway table like a teenager breaking curfew, then leaned against the doorframe with faux innocence dripping from her like bad perfume. I had a one-night stand. Yes, again, she said, the corners of her mouth twitching upward, daring me to flinch. Thought you should know. I chewed, slowly, methodically, swallowed, dabbed my lips with the napkin. Thanks for the update, I said, tone flat as an EKG line after a final beep. Not anger, not surprise, just a flat line. And that got her more than any shouting match ever had. She blinked twice, then tilted her head, clearly trying to read the script she assumed I was supposed to follow. You know, the one, yell, curse, maybe cry, then beg for an explanation I didn't want, only to sleep on the couch while she texted the next one-night thing. Instead, I cut another bite of steak. She scoffed, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and left the room with forced nonchalance, muttering something about how I was being weird. I finished my dinner in silence, chewed, swallowed, cleared my plate, cleaned only my own fork, knife, and dish, dried them, put them away. She'd left her shoes in the middle of the hallway like always. I stepped around them. Lights off, alarm set, door locked. I slept in the guest room that night. Not because she'd kicked me out, no, she hadn't said a word after her declaration, but because that room had something our bedroom no longer did. Space. Space to think, space to plan, space to finally let the weight of her words settle, not like a bomb, but like blueprints on a table. Now, let me say something real quick. Over 97% of the folks who hear these stories never hit subscribe. If you're one of them and you've made it this far, maybe consider it. It tells our little team that the quiet stories, the cold, patient ones, matter. That not every man who's been betrayed wants to burn the house down. Some of us prefer to rearrange the foundation while you're still sleeping in it. That night, I didn't spiral. I calculated. While she curled up under our duvet with the scent of another man still clinging to her, I opened a new note on my phone, labeled it Phase 1. I didn't fill in all the details, just a few bullet points. Financial decoupling, social disconnection, legal review. I went to sleep with a still heart and a slow breath, because when someone tells you, again, that they've cheated, they're not confessing. They're testing if you still value them more than your own dignity. And I had just decided to fail that test, quietly, completely, and with a smile she wouldn't see coming. The smell is what wakes her, or rather, the absence of it. No bacon, no coffee, no eggs sizzling in the pan, no faint hum of the espresso machine that I, until recently, cleaned more religiously than my own car. Rachel always used to say, well, waking up to the smell of breakfast made her feel safe, like the world outside could unravel, but her house was a soft place to land. That morning, it was all tile and cold air and silence. She shuffled out in one of my old t-shirts, an oversized gray one I stopped wearing after the first time she borrowed it and never gave it back. I was already dressed, navy polo, track pants, gym bag slung over my shoulder. I had my keys in one hand, my phone in the other, and a look on my face that told anyone paying attention that something was different. Not angry, not moody, just done. She blinked at me like I was part of a different reality. Oh, you're up early. You're up, she corrected herself quickly, throwing in that lazy, sing-song tone she always used when trying to ease into a lie. Her hair was a mess. Her mascara was still smudged. She didn't look guilty. She looked unprepared. Jim, I said. Then the bank. She tilted her head. Bank? I nodded once. Didn't elaborate. Her eyes flicked past me, scanning the counter. The French press was in its place. The coffee grinder hadn't been touched, no dishes in the sink, the stove, cold. She moved to the fridge and peeked in, then looked over her shoulder with that tight-lipped smile. "You didn't make breakfast?" "Nope." There was a pause, the kind that tastes like metal and regret, even if no one's ready to admit it. She chuckled, tried to play it off like it was nothing. "Okay, but weird. I mean, I kinda thought after last night you might have questions or something." I looked at her, not through her, at her. "Last night? You gave me the answer." That tripped her for a second, but she kept the smirk. "You're still acting weird." "No, I'm acting like a man who finally believes what he's seen." She frowned, fully now. The cheery facade cracked just enough to expose the rust underneath. "So what? You're punishing me by skipping breakfast?" I slid my phone into my pocket, opened the front door, and turned halfway back toward her. "I stopped making things for people who mock me, Rachel. You should try it. It's a time saver." She stood there barefoot, clutching the edge of the kitchen counter like it might steady her, like she couldn't figure out which version of the game we were playing now. And worse, why she didn't recognize the board. See, every morning for the last 13 years had been a ritual. Coffee first, hers with oat milk, then breakfast, scrambled, bacon crisp but not too crisp, then news. If I skipped it, she'd call me off. If I forgot oat milk once, she'd sigh and toss the cup in the sink like I'd served her poison. Little rituals, little cuts. It took me years to realize they weren't signs of care, they were signs of control, scripts. And that morning, I rewrote the script. I left before she could ask anything else, before she could try to pin me down with a sudden, too sweet apology or a flirtatious, "You're being dramatic." Because this part of the plan wasn't for her to understand. It was for her to feel that shift in gravity, that tiny crack in her illusion of control. And if she felt off balance now, good, that was the point. The first real panic hit her around 7:42 a.m. That's when she walked out in heels she hadn't broken in yet and spotted her front passenger tire slouched like a deflated lung. The Lexus leaned slightly, as if it too had given up on pretending everything was fine. Rachel did what she always did when the world inconvenienced her. She reached for me, or rather, the version of me she'd trained, her fixer, her errand boy, the man who once rotated her tires in the snow while she FaceTimed a friend to complain about her lazy husband. I'd heard it, by the way. She didn't mute, she never thought she had to. She texted me first, "Flat tire, need you." Then again, with more edge. "Michael, seriously?" I saw both messages while jogging past the 3rd-mile mark. Read receipts on. No reply. She tried calling. Straight to voicemail. 3 more texts. Nothing. That's when she remembered I wasn't acting weird. I was acting done. She booked an Uber. It was her first time using the app in almost 2 years. She'd always handed that sort of thing to me. "You're better at apps," she used to say, which really meant I don't want to deal with it unless it's convenient. Her tone with the driver was clipped and fake sweet. "Sorry, crazy morning." She said it like a punchline, but her stomach had already started that slow churn, the kind you get when you realize you've left the house wearing 2 different shoes, except this time it was her life that didn't match anymore. At the office, she breezed past reception with the confidence of someone used to being the exception. Her card didn't work at the door. That was the first hiccup. The security guard had to buzz her in manually, then asked, "Hey, didn't Nate update the access tiers last week?" She laughed like she had a clue. "Yeah, I think mine just glitched." It hadn't. Then came the coffee. The intern ordered a round from the shop downstairs. Rachel tapped her company card into the shared app like always. Declined. Twice, and she stepped aside and tried again manually. Declined. Her boss, a woman named Candace, with too much Botox and not enough patience, raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" Rachel forced a smile. "Probably just a fraud flag. I'll call banking." She didn't call banking. She called me, voicemail. She texted, "Did you change something with the company card? It's not working. I need this fixed now. Read." No reply. Then another text. More brittle now. "Michael, answer me." Finally, I responded, "Use your own account. Independence suits you." That was it. No emoji, no sarcasm. Just a simple truth dressed as a dismissal. She stared at the screen like it had insulted her, because in her mind I had always been the support beam. Not visible, not flashy, but load-bearing. I handled her passwords. I logged into the finance dashboards. I scheduled her car maintenance and filed the disputes when her mileage reimbursement got denied. She once said I was like a husband and a virtual assistant in one, and laughed like that was endearing. She never asked how I felt about being invisible. The rest of her day crumbled in slow motion. Her meeting ran over. She'd forgotten to update a slide because I used to double-check her decks. She skipped lunch because she didn't know her debit card PIN. It was stored in a note she never bothered to sync when she upgraded her phone. She texted me again around 3 p.m., this time with a single word. Seriously? I didn't respond, because the truth is, care isn't just about roses and breakfast trays. It's about oil changes, password resets, and making sure the life behind the curtain runs smooth enough that you can keep pretending you're the star. And when that care vanishes, you start to notice, in the smallest ways at first. Then it spreads, like a flat tire in your marriage. Quiet, slow, and absolutely, unmistakably, your problem now. Rachel had planned lunch like she always did, half out of habit, half out of vanity. A trendy downtown spot she could just pop into, where the host always recognized her by name and pretended not to see when she breezed past a 3-table wait list. She ordered the grilled fig salad and a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, pulled out her card with a smile she'd perfected since college, and tapped it against the reader like royalty touching parchment, declined. She blinked and tapped again, slower this time, like the machine needed to feel her confidence. Declined. Try it manually, she said to the waiter, not even looking up from her phone. He did, same result. Do you have another card? He asked, voice gentle, like he knew he was about to get snarled at. But she wasn't snarling. Not yet. Not until the realization started to slither up her spine like ice water. I'll call the bank, she muttered. She left cash for the wine, barely enough, and walked out fast, sunglasses on, ignoring the couple by the window who had definitely just watched her fail to pay for a salad that cost less than her gym leggings. At the bank, the carpet was too soft, the air too perfumed. She marched straight to the counter, flicked her card on the desk. It's not working. Fix it. The teller, a polite young woman with peach-colored nails, typed for a bit, then paused. Ma'am, it says here that access was formally removed this week. Joint consent. Rachel leaned in. Joint what? Joint consent. It shows signed authorization. Notarized. That's impossible. I didn't sign anything. The woman hesitated. Would you like to see the document? Rachel nodded furiously, nostrils flaring. The woman disappeared into the back. Minutes passed. Rachel drummed her fingers on the marble counter like it was a snare drum. She was already rehearsing what she'd say to Michael. The words lawsuit and fraud floated to the top of her list. Then her phone buzzed, a text from me. Just one file attached, a scanned, notarized statement. Her digital signature at the bottom. Timestamps, details, legally clean and unmistakably real. All joint accounts, split premarital agreement. Effective immediately. Signed and acknowledged by both parties. That document, one I'd slipped into a batch of end-of-year tax updates she couldn't be bothered to read, had already processed. I hadn't just removed her access, I'd rewritten the entire financial arrangement while she was busy enjoying her independence. She called me, of course. Straight to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. She didn't need to. The panic had arrived. Rachel drove home on autopilot, hands gripping the wheel like it might disappear too. Her thoughts bounced between furious and frantic. This is illegal. This is war. This is insane. But when she burst through the front door and ran to the safe behind the laundry cabinet, she found it wide open. Empty. Every envelope, every bond certificate, every spare passport copy, every ring box, even the baby teeth she'd insisted on keeping for the memories. Gone. She checked the closet. The small lockbox where we used to keep our backup cash. Gone. She pulled open the drawer under the coffee table. No spare keys, not a single one, not even the plastic-coated valet key we used to argue about keeping. Her breath came short and ragged. Not crying. Not yet. But something worse, realization. Because now, for the first time, the pattern was obvious. I hadn't snapped. I hadn't lost control. I'd planned, weeks, maybe months. While she bragged about flings like they were badges of liberation, I was laying mine, a blueprint made of signatures, statements, and silent extractions. The worst part? She didn't even know when it started, and I wasn't about to tell her. Because this wasn't revenge, not yet. This was foundation work. Quiet, surgical, permanent. It started with suspicion, hers, not mine. After the bank, after the safe, after the keys. That night, she went to bed early, pretending to be calm. She curled up beneath the duvet like a woman nursing a mild cold rather than a full-blown hemorrhage of control. But her eyes stayed open. I could feel them, tracking me as I brushed my teeth, watching as I picked up a book and sat in the armchair by the window like I had nowhere else to be. She wanted to ask, wanted to scream, wanted to claw at the edges of whatever invisible plan she suddenly suspected I was following. She didn't. That silence? It wasn't respect, it was reconnaissance. Around 3 a.m., when she thought I was finally asleep, she slid out of bed like a burglar in her own home. She crept around the room barefoot, careful not to let the wood floors creak. She checked the drawer of my nightstand. Nothing. She eased open my closet. Just shoes and jackets. No tucked away folder, no obvious manila envelope marked gotcha. But she didn't check the usual hiding spots. She checked under the pillow. My pillow. And that's where it was. Not hidden, not buried. Just placed carefully. Plain, white envelope. Unsealed, almost like I wanted her to find it. Inside one printed spreadsheet several pages long, the top of page 1 said in bold, Exit Strategy. Phase Progress. 67%. She sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, like she was afraid the paper might bite. The first column listed dates. The second, incidents. The third, action taken. The fourth, anticipated response. The final, actual response. Under May 14th, incident. Flirted with bartender at sister's wedding. Action taken. Began separating joint credit lines. Anticipated response. None. Expects attention. Actual response. Demanded flowers within 48 years. Under June 22nd, incident. Found hotel room receipt and purse labeled work trip. Action taken. Created decoy password vault. Moved key financial docs to secondary drive. Anticipated response. Laughter. Deflection. Actual response. You're just paranoid. It's all your work. And on it went. Affairs she didn't think I knew about. Conversations she assumed I'd forgotten. Dates I'd marked with precision, not pain. It wasn't an emotional diary, it was an operational ledger. Every move she'd made, every boundary she'd stepped over, plotted like a military campaign. Except she wasn't the general. She wasn't even the soldier. She was the terrain. One tab was labeled, What She Expects Me to Do, versus What I Actually Will. It read like a cruel parody of our marriage. Expectation. Demand answers. Get manipulated. Forgive. Sleep together. Start over. Actual. Say nothing. Execute document number 4. Cancel vacation. Transfer ownership. Retrieve POA. Expectation. Vent to friends. Get validation. Feel superior. Actual. Already isolated via disclosures. 2 closest friends debriefed. Silence expected. And finally, at the very bottom, in all caps, final detachment. Week 3. Action. Silent walkout. No speech. Leave her the mirror. She read it twice, then a third time. Her fingers trembling. Her face pale. This wasn't a reaction. It wasn't a husband flailing in heartbreak. It was a man already gone who'd just forgotten to leave. She curled up again under the sheets, this time with the document clutched in her lap, not like a weapon, like a warning, something ancient and unreadable she'd found too late to stop. The horror wasn't in the betrayal. The horror was in the design. She had cheated out of impulse, smugness, habit. I was unfaithful to one thing only, the script she believed I'd keep following. And she was just now realizing I hadn't just known, I had documented. And I was right on schedule. The house was dark when she stepped inside. Not dimmed, not in that cozy movie night kind of way. Dark, as in forgotten, as in unwelcoming. No jazz playing from the speakers. No scent of garlic or rosemary curling through the air, just silence. Still, dense. Rachel paused in the doorway, key still in hand, expecting what? A confrontation, a question, even a passive-aggressive comment. Nothing came. Only the soft, methodical sound of utensils clicking against ceramic. She rounded the corner. There I sat at the dining table, bathed in the pale glow of a single pendant light above me. One plate, one glass of water, fork, knife, napkin, calm, deliberate. She glanced at the place where her plate used to be, blank. Then at the wine rack, untouched. The cabinet where we kept the expensive glasses she always insisted we use on Tuesdays because why not? Closed. Her heels clicked softly as she crossed the floor, trying not to sound like she was tiptoeing into enemy territory. "Hey," she said, voice light, controlled. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up. "I'm eating," I said, cutting a piece of chicken. "You can speak after I'm done." She stood there for a moment, blinking, then sat down across from me like she was still entitled to the chair, to the space, to me, her hands folded neatly in her lap, composed, practiced, but her eyes gave it away. They scanned the table like a lie detector. No napkin for her, no silverware, no shared breadbasket. Just an empty place across from a man who had in every way that mattered already moved on. She waited. The silence stretched between us like taut rope. No clinking glasses. No "how was your day?" No joke about the neighbor's dog or her coworker's bad haircut. Nothing. Just the slow rhythm of my chewing and the occasional sound of a knife scraping the plate. The sounds of a man who wasn't punishing her. He was simply done serving her. Rachel leaned forward slightly. "I read the file." I didn't flinch. I I didn't know you felt that way." Still chewing. "I mean, we've had problems, sure, but, that was cold." I finally looked up. "You think the document was cold?" She hesitated. "Yes. No, that was warmth. Cold was when I was still smiling and you thought I didn't know." She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "Look, I've said things, stupid things, but we're married. We're supposed to go through rough patches. You don't just walk away." I wiped my mouth with the napkin, stood, collected my plate. Still no raised voice, no slammed hand, just motion. At the sink, I rinsed the dish, placed it carefully in the rack. Her eyes followed me like a starving dog follows a fading scent. When I finally turned to face her, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Not fragile, just unnecessary. I walked past her, not around. Past, like she wasn't an obstacle, just furniture in a house I had already emotionally vacated. "You think I'm angry?" I said. "I'm not. That would imply I still want something from you." She rose halfway from her chair. "So that's it? You're just done?" "No," I said, already walking away. "I'm already past done. This is just the part where you finally notice." Behind me, she stood in a room built for two, lit for one, and realized she wasn't sitting across from a man seeking closure. She was sitting across from absence, and it had a fork in its hand. She tried to cry that night. Not performatively, not for attention. This time she was alone, fully, terrifyingly alone. But nothing came, just a shallow ache behind her ribs and a tightness in her throat, like grief was caught mid-swallow. She sat on the edge of the bed, surrounded by the mess she used to call control. Bank papers in disarray, her handbag overturned from her earlier search for the backup credit card, a single broken heel tip rolling on the floor like the last laugh of a joke she didn't get. She grabbed her phone and called Lisa. Lisa had been her ride or die since high school, maid of honor at our wedding. The first person Rachel ever told about her mistake, though she didn't call it that. She called it a reset. Lisa didn't approve, but she kept quiet. They always kept each other's secrets, like a code. The phone rang twice, then voicemail. Rachel hung up and called again. Voicemail. She frowned. Lisa never missed calls, especially not after midnight, especially not when Rachel needed to debrief, spin the narrative, and, if necessary, cry in someone else's kitchen with a glass of wine and a plan. She sent a quick text. "Can we talk? It's urgent." Nothing. Then another. "Seriously, call me." Still nothing. Rachel opened Instagram, fingers twitching with irritation. She needed a distraction, something to scroll. Lisa's profile popped up, still active, still public. At the top of her activity feed, Rachel noticed something odd. Lisa followed. At Michael Pond, her breath hitched. My account, my photos, the very same page she once joked was so boring it might as well be an obituary. Now she followed it. Rachel scrolled further. There it was, my most recent post, uploaded just hours earlier. A quiet photo of a lake. The same dock I used to visit when I needed silence.
A single folding chair, fishing pole resting against the railing. Sunset bleeding across the water like someone had slashed the sky open. Caption: Peace isn't passive, it's chosen. And there, under the photo, Lisa's name.
Liked, and worse, comment, proud of you. Rachel stared at the screen like it had just slapped her. She refreshed the page. The comment was still there. Proud of you. For what? She tapped furiously at the keyboard. What's going on? Send, read, no reply. Another text. Are you serious? You liked that post? What the hell is happening? No reply. She tried calling again, straight to voicemail. In a panic, she checked Messenger. Lisa hadn't posted anything since Tuesday. Her profile picture was still the one from our anniversary dinner last year, back when everything still looked like it worked, even if it didn't. Rachel opened their old thread, scrolled back through the history. Lisa was the one who once said, "Men don't walk away. They detach slowly while you're busy thinking you're in control." At the time, it was about Lisa's ex-husband. Now it echoed like a curse Rachel had cast on herself. She stared at the chat, thumb hovering, then opened her contacts and called two other friends. One didn't pick up, the other texted back, "Can't talk RN. Everything okay?" Rachel didn't answer. What would she even say? My husband, who I thought was pathetic, quiet, and stuck, somehow turned everyone I thought was mine. No, she didn't say anything. She just sat there, phone on her lap, room dark, my drawer open and empty, Lisa's comment haunting her like a funeral note. Because that's what it was, not a betrayal, a realignment, one by one, without yelling, without warning, the pillars she built her identity on. Support, sympathy, secrecy were shifting, and none of them were facing her anymore. The envelope was thick, the kind printed on textured ivory stock with embossed calligraphy, the kind that practically screamed prestige before you even opened it. It arrived on a Thursday afternoon, tucked between an insurance promo and a reminder from the dentist. Rachel nearly tossed it aside until she noticed the gold foil trim. She smiled. It was the gala. The annual Friends of Eastwell charity ball, the one she and I had attended for years. Like clockwork, the same event where she'd once clinked glasses with a local senator and posted 3 Instagram stories captioned "Power Couple Vibes." Her dress last year had made the highlights in a lifestyle blog. She remembered everything. She opened the envelope with theatrical grace, as if cameras were watching. Then she saw it. To Michael Pond, plus guest no. Rachel, no Mr. and Mrs. No joint invitation, just a name, and a blank space filled by someone else. Her laugh was hollow. Probably a clerical error, she muttered to herself. They always mess up the mailing list. But her hand gripped the envelope just a little too tightly. She didn't call me, didn't ask. She told herself that would look desperate. Instead, she booked a dress fitting, chose something bolder than usual. Deep burgundy, plunging neckline, aggressive heels, her war paint. The night of the event, she stepped out of the Uber like royalty reclaiming her seat at court. Her driver offered a compliment. She smiled without hearing it. The hotel valet nodded. She handed over the keys to a car she barely drove anymore. Everything about her screamed composed, powerful, entitled. She ascended the stone steps of the ballroom with the poise of someone who assumed the doors would part for her. They didn't. "Name?" the young woman at the entrance asked. "Rachel Pond," she said, with a smile that bordered on indulgent. The woman scanned the list, her finger gliding slowly down the iPad. Pause, flicked again, pause. "I'm sorry, you're not listed." Rachel tilted her head. "Check under Michael Pond. It's our standard listing." Another scroll. The woman's face didn't shift. "Yes, I have Michael Pond here. He RSVP'd with a guest." "Exactly. That's me. I'm afraid I can't let you in. He's already arrived." Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. Already arrived. She stepped back from the desk. Eyes narrowing, heart pounding with something sour and unfamiliar. She turned slightly, peering through the tall glass doors that framed the ballroom. And there I was, in a tailored charcoal suit, one she hadn't seen before, smiling, standing confidently, one hand resting lightly on the back of a woman in a navy blue dress she didn't recognize. The woman laughed at something I whispered, then took my hand as the music shifted and I guided her to the dance floor. We moved in rhythm, effortless, no hesitation. Rachel's breath hitched. Someone behind her said, "Excuse me," and she realized she was blocking the steps. She stepped aside. Then slowly she turned and began to walk back down toward the street. The sound of her heels on the stone echoed in the chill night air, louder than the music, louder than the polite laughter inside. Every click a reminder. This used to be her space, her scene, her entrance, her narrative. And now she wasn't even on the guest list. Outside, a valet approached her hesitantly. "Waiting for someone, ma'am?" She shook her head. "No, Her voice caught. "I'm not staying." He nodded and stepped away. She stood there for a moment under the awning, staring at her reflection in the brass-trimmed glass. The dress still looked good, the hair was still perfect, but she'd never looked less like someone who belonged. Because the thing about being replaced isn't just the presence of someone new, it's the erasure of assumption. And tonight, for the first time, Rachel wasn't left out. She was excluded. On purpose. Quietly. Elegantly. And no one inside missed her. Rachel came home in a daze. She didn't bother taking off her shoes. She didn't even close the front door all the way. Her coat clung to her shoulders like dead weight, her hands trembling slightly as she moved through the foyer. Her eyes were wide, blinking more often than necessary, as if reality might change if she just kept refreshing the page fast enough. Inside the house, everything looked the same, which only made it worse. Same frame photos on the wall, same decorative vase she'd insisted we buy in Milan, same faint lavender scent from the diffuser I always kept filled, even though she said she didn't notice the difference. She stood in the middle of the living room like she'd forgotten why she was there. Then suddenly, she snapped into motion. She tore into the sideboard first, flinging open drawers with a frantic energy she didn't try to mask. Receipts, user manuals, some old birthday cards. Nothing. Next came the file cabinet in the study, her hand shaking as she yanked out folders one by one. She flipped through bank statements, work contracts, old W-2s. Then she found it. A plain blue folder marked with a post-it, tax on the third quarter. She remembered it now. 3 weeks ago, I'd asked her to sign something, some tax correction thing the accountant needed. She hadn't even looked, just scribbled her name at the bottom while she was half watching some show on her tablet. She even made a joke at the time. "God knows what I'm signing. You could be making me sell my kidney." I smiled, said nothing, and she handed me the pen. Now, with the folder open on her lap, the pages told a different story. No tax forms, no CPA cover letter. Instead, notice of intent to separate finances, consent to independent asset allocation, voluntary acknowledgement of marital asset division, effective date, retroactive, signed and witnessed. Every signature was hers, every timestamp already verified, every seal already applied, and on the second to last page near the bottom, executed without contest, in absence of challenge. She read it twice, then a third time. The legal phrasing was cold, clinical, but the meaning hit like a slap. Not only had I left her, quietly, without grand speeches or thrown plates, but I'd structured the exit so thoroughly that she had helped build the escape hatch without knowing it. This wasn't just about pulling away. This was about securing everything first, locking the doors behind me, ensuring that by the time she noticed the fire, the entire room was already burned out, the insurance claim filed, the settlement paid, and she had co-signed the whole thing. Rachel clutched the folder to her chest like it might soften the betrayal. But paper doesn't bend to grief. It doesn't care if your hands shake. She staggered back into the hallway, bracing herself against the wall. The kitchen light flicked on automatically as she passed through. She caught her reflection in the microwave door, eyes wide, makeup from the gala smudged and flaking, jaw slack with the kind of disbelief that has nowhere to land. She whispered aloud, barely, "What did I sign?" But she already knew. She'd been too comfortable, too confident. She thought silence meant submission, that quiet meant weakness, that a man who didn't yell was a man still waiting for permission. She never understood the difference between patience and planning. Until now. Because I didn't ask for space, I structured it, legally, permanently, and by the time she realized what had been done, it was already notarized, stamped, filed, and final. She was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs, hair brushed, fresh lipstick, a pot of coffee brewing. Her robe was cinched neatly, like this was any other morning, like she hadn't just spent the previous night tearing through documents like a prosecutor at trial. She even lit the candle she used to say was too good to waste on Tuesdays, vanilla and fig, trying to reset the room, pretend it wasn't ash. The table was set, plates stacked, 2 mugs out, cloth napkins folded like origami birds. She turned when she heard my steps and smiled. It was a rehearsed smile, tight at the corners, the kind people wear at funerals when the cameras are on. "Waffles or French toast?" she asked, voice just a little too high, a little too cheerful. I said nothing. Just walked past her, placed my phone on the counter, pulled out the same chair I'd been sitting in for 13 years. She hovered by the stove, spatula in hand, waiting, hoping, like if she could just perform normal hard enough, the house would forget the echo in its walls. I placed a single folded paper on the placemat in front of me. Quiet, precise. She turned, saw it, her hand twitched. She didn't speak right away, just walked over, slowly, like a dream was ending, and sat down across from me. She stared at the paper for several seconds before touching it, like it might burn or vanish. Then she unfolded it. 4 pages. Final. Notice of separation enforcement effective immediately. Her eyes skimmed over the details. Joint accounts closed. Property transferred under clause 14C. Emergency contacts updated. Mail forwarding activated. Lock codes changed. All signed, all dated, all processed through the appropriate channels. And at the bottom, a single handwritten line. This was the last breakfast you assumed I'd make. I stood. She finally looked up. "Michael," but I was already walking away. Not storming, not shouting, just walking. Calm. Whole. The door opened. Cold morning air swept in. She stood too fast, knocking over her chair in the process. "We can fix this. Please, don't do this. Not like this. Michael." I paused in the doorway, turned back, looked her in the eyes. Not hate, not pity, just clarity. "You never made room for me at the table," I said, "only expected me to serve it." She stared. I left. No luggage, it was already gone. No explanation, it had already been given. Behind me, the candle flickered, the coffee brewed, and Rachel sat in a kitchen built for 2, now haunted by a plate that would never be filled, and a silence that wasn't waiting for her apology. It was waiting for her to understand, and it never would.